Hello and welcome back to me just getting something done. Or welcome if you're new. So that might seem a little harsh. And the reason is that this was not the first time I attempted to draw this today. It was not the first thing I did. I was actually feeling really ambitious earlier in the day, and I was gonna try out a new program that I've only used like once to do something really simple. And it did not work. It was not to my standard, and I threw it out. I deleted it. There's no evidence. It never happened. So then I had to do it again after putting in a bunch of work and getting really, really frustrated. And then I had to start over. And so I was gonna be happy with it based on like, oh, I'm doing something new. And this, I wasn't doing something new. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna be really self-indulgent. And I'm just gonna be like, okay, what haven't I done for a while? And I hadn't done a really sculptural face, like super intense cheekbones, as you can see. I wanted to do like a more intense face, because usually I go more cutesy. And I was like, okay, that's unusual for me, so I can feel good about it. Be like, I got a little out of my comfort zone, and we're just not gonna mention that I tried to do this one time already. But like, having to start over when you're already like a decent way into something, having to do everything differently, I was pretty frustrated, and I feel like that comes across in like her expression. She's kind of facing her body towards us, but her head is away, and then she's looking at us, or a little past us, and she really looks disgusted. I feel like my mood has influenced this. So I also want to point out that her like kind of messy bun thing, it's not meant to be like centered. It's not centered. It's like to one side, and that's why you don't see as much hair on the other side. It's kind of pulled into this bun. And I add kind of like pearls into it later because it's very, very, very loosely inspired by like ancient Minoan clothing. And if you're wanting to look that up, just be aware it's Bronze Age, so like the nipple didn't have to be free in the Bronze Age. It was already free. There was no free the nipple movement. It was not needed. So you've been warned. You will see some things. But so this is actually kind of inspired by one of the very few outfits where the chest is not out. There is one. It's originally orange, but I made it purple to match my mood, the mood of the piece. So that's kind of, it's a fantasy illustration, but like that's kind of the inspiration. Which I love like super old clothing. It's super fascinating. So I'm mentioning that because like it's kind of, they have very interesting hair. I've never seen like a modern recreation, but like frescoes, really fascinating. I have no idea what their hair would be even like. It's so bizarre looking, but it's very intense, and they have like a lot. It's a lot. So yeah, I decided to actually pick an inspiration for clothing because I haven't in a while, and I've always just kind of I've been just putting random clothes on them. Really decided last minute. I decided I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to live like that. But I didn't actually look up reference. So this is like Minoan by way of I haven't seen it in several months. Which is about the amount of kind of abstraction from that I wanted, because I didn't want it to actually be like a historical drawing. Obviously she has blue hair. She has purple eyes. She's a fantasy person. But yeah. And I also kind of wanted to not necessarily be messier, like, because I do paint over like everything. This drawing took like 3 hours. Not counting the first time where I messed up and had to throw everything out. Just this. But I went with like a small brush on the paint over. And so I kind of scribbled a lot, which I did some in some earlier ones that I was doing. But I really wanted to lean into that, to kind of like a blend, not just with like actual blending, but also with like hatching, which I like, because again, reiterate from several weeks ago, maybe a month ago, honestly, that one of my big goals with this kind of stylistic change was that I wanted to be able to incorporate some messiness. And when I made that decision, I was taking like 2 hours on a drawing, and already I have gotten more into refining it, and it's ballooned to 3 hours. So maybe I've lost the plot a little bit. But I changed from an art style that like took like 5 or 6 hours upwards of 8 hours every time. So I'm closer to where I wanted to be. But another thing that I talked about, I think, a little bit last week, but you might notice there's some crazy colors. And that's on purpose. Because there's not a whole lot going on in the piece, I wanted to at least make sure that the skin was interesting, you know? Part of that is that when you color pick, sometimes you can dull the colors because you're not necessarily color picking at the point of greatest intensity all the time. And otherwise you kind of lose the intensity when you don't do it at that point. And so you kind of, at least I like to go a little bit more intense and then pick what color I want from there. But also just, I did want some more interesting colors. So like I have kind of oranges where the light meets the shadow. I have kind of a cool teal blue on the side where the light is coming from. That almost matches her hair, but isn't quite. I have like purples and like a softer, truer blue in the purples and all that. And of course, with the blush, I actually did a orangier blush and then a pinkier blush at different places. It's really just, I wanted there to be a lot of variation in her skin because there wasn't going to be a lot of variation in the hair or in the clothes. They're kind of superfluous. They're little details, but they're not important. So I felt like the skin was really the main draw here. Yeah, every once in a while I just really want to really focus in on like the planes of the face and do someone with real intense cheekbones. Just I actually haven't done that since there was an oil painting I did a few years ago where I really did that a lot. There were several oil paintings I did that with. But yeah. Once in a while I can never settle. If you've been around for a while, you've noticed some changes in my art. If you just look at the feed of the things I've posted, you'll notice some changes have occurred. And that's because every once in a while I'll just be like, okay, I've been doing this for a little while and I like it. But also there's this other thing that I also like that I think would be really cool, and like maybe I can just do that instead. And then I can never go back to what I had before because I'm tainted with the new thing I do that's cool. So I just get distracted a lot. So yeah, just a little more detail on the pearls so it's clear what they are. Yeah, I decided she didn't have enough bulk up with the hair. Because besides like the skin, the hair is also a really important part. Yeah, I kind of tried to detail in her eyebrows a little bit and like make sure that they had that kind of, she's either sad or she's mad at us. I don't, there's some sort of feeling there. And I wasn't quite sure what it was, but I didn't want to lose it if I'm like the paint over. So I had to add it back in. I've been doing a lot more detail with the eyelashes because it brings me joy. It's not super noticeable, I don't feel, but it's a little noticeable, and I like doing it. It's like, I think the last thing I do, I think we're about over with this. Oh, I add a little bit of shine to the eyes and they add a little bit of lightness to the background. Because it was a little too flat. Yeah. Well, there we are. Hope you enjoyed.